Welcome back, investigators. Today we're cracking open a cold case that's been sitting on ice for about, 160 million years. Our mission? To finally put a name, or names, to the real rulers of the Jurassic.
So when I ask that question, I bet a very specific image pops into your head, right? A giant, ferocious predator with a roar that shakes the very seats in a movie theater. Well, you might want to buckle up.
Yeah, that's right. Our most famous suspect has an airtight alibi. Turns out Tyrannosaurus Rex lived during the Cretaceous period. That's a full 80 million years after our Jurassic crime scene went cold. So if you came here to see T-Rex, you're just a little bit too early. Let's go find the real culprits.
All right, here's our case file for today. We're going to start by surveying the scene of the crime. That's planet Earth, 160 million years ago. Then we'll check out the parade of giants, identify the prime predators, look to the skies and seas, and finally, uncover a little secret that was happening right under everyone's feet.
Okay, first things first, welcome to the Middle Jurassic. And I'd advise you to check your oxygen mask because this world is, well, it's totally alien. It's so different from our own, you'll have to forget everything you think you know about planet Earth. For starters, the air itself is supercharged. We're talking carbon dioxide levels a staggering 7 times higher than in pre-industrial times. And that wasn't just a minor climate shift. Oh no, that fundamentally changed the entire planet. All that extra CO2 cranked up the thermostat, creating this massive greenhouse effect. There were no polar ice caps, which meant sea levels were way higher. It was a warm, wet, high-energy world. You might even call it the perfect incubator for giants.
And the view? It was just a sea of green as far as the eye could see. But forget about grassy fields or colorful flowers. This world was all about giant conifers, forests of cycads, and endless carpets of ferns. It was basically a planetary all-you-can-eat buffet if you were big enough to get a seat at the table.
So, who exactly was feasting in this giant's garden? Well, all the evidence is pretty overwhelming. It all points to one group that ruled the land by sheer size alone, the Sauropods.
And look, when I say big, I don't think you get it. These creatures defined the very concept of big. They were true titans of biomass. To them, we'd be nothing more than tiny ants scurrying underfoot, and their footsteps would literally shake the ground.
And they were all specialized, each one an absolute masterpiece of biological engineering. You had Diplodocus, built like a living suspension bridge, with a tail that could crack like a whip. Then there was Brachiosaurus, a biological crane, using its long front legs to reach the highest treetops. And the list goes on.
Now, you can't have a world full of enormous, walking buffets without attracting some serious predators. And this, my friends, is where our investigation really starts to heat up.
So, this brings us to the million-dollar question. If T-Rex is out, who's our prime suspect? Who is sitting at the very top of this gigantic food chain? Everybody, meet Allosaurus. This was the lion of the Jurassic. Forget everything else you think you know about dinosaur predators. For this time and this place, this was the most formidable hunter on the planet.
Now, it wasn't as massive as the T-Rex that came later, but it was faster, more agile. And check this out, it had these powerful 3-clawed arms, not like the tiny, almost useless arms on a T-Rex. It's very likely they hunted in packs, which is how they could take down a young or weakened sauropod.
Of course, the Allosaurus wasn't working alone. Let's look at its accomplices. It shared its turf with other hunters, like the Ceratosaurus with that weird, distinctive horn on its nose, and the famous Megalosaurus. They each had their own role to play in this very dangerous world. But here's the thing, ruling the land, that was only part of the story. The Jurassic was an age of giants, and their empire extended way beyond the forests, stretching up into the skies and deep into the oceans. So if you really want to get a handle on this era, you have to look at the whole picture. There wasn't just one ruler. It was an empire of titans, with different giants completely dominating every single dimension of life. Up in the air? Forget about birds. I mean, sure, the first ones were just starting to evolve, but they were tiny, insignificant things. The skies belonged without question to the Pterosaurs, these incredible reptiles with leathery wings soaring on the warm air currents. And what about the oceans? Oh, the oceans were home to actual sea monsters. We're talking about creatures like Leopleurodon, a type of pliosaur so huge it would make a modern killer whale look like a guppy.
They turned the warm Jurassic seas into their own terrifying private hunting grounds.
But hold on, because our investigation is about to take a really sharp turn. It turns out the biggest clue to understanding this era isn't found with the giants, but it's hidden down in their shadows.
Think about it. While all these incredible dinosaurs were ruling the day, what was going on underfoot? Down in the burrows, in the dead of night? What about our own tiny, distant ancestors?
You know, the old story was that mammals back then were just surviving, just biding their time, cowering in holes, living these short, nasty lives, and basically just trying not to get stepped on.
But a recent discovery has completely flipped that script. It turns out these little guys could live for 7 years, maybe even longer. Now, that might not sound like a lot, but it means they weren't just surviving. They were playing the long game, developing complex lives and sophisticated strategies right under the dinosaurs' feet.
So, after looking at the land, the sea, the sky, and even the shadows, what's the final verdict in this case? Who really gets to wear the crown?
The truth is, there was no single king. The Jurassic was more like a grand, majestic empire with a shared throne. The Sauropods ruled by their sheer, world-shaping presence. Allosaurus ruled the hunt. Paleosaurus and Pterosaurs ruled their own domains. And the mammals? Well, they were ruling the night, quietly playing the long game.
So, our number one suspect, T-Rex, wasn't here, which begs the question, where was he? Well, join us next time as we jump forward 80 million years into the Cretaceous, where we'll finally meet the king and witness the spectacular, fiery end of the entire dinosaur dynasty.